Cool dessert dishes were first prepared for emperors in ancient China in the 3rd century BC. The combination of snow, ice, and pieces of fruit was served to them as dessert after a hearty meal. Several hundred years later, the Chinese decided to refine the recipe. For that, they mixed ice and snow with milk. And so they learned to make a very complex frozen dessert, already very similar to modern ice cream. They mixed it with crushed rice and heated it up. They sweetened the sour mixture, added flour to thicken it and camphor for aroma. The Chinese kept the secret of preparing their ice cream a closely guarded secret. But through the state's active trade relations in the 4th century BC, the secret became known in the Arabian Peninsula, Persia, and India. A dessert made with a mixture of snow and sweet fruits was treated by Persian nobles to Alexander the Great, the most famous military leader of the time. He really disliked hot days, and so the ice cream, which was so pleasant and deliciously cooling, appealed to him. Alexander the Great was convinced that in the heat of the day ice cream gives strength, so he advised to eat it every soldier. The soldiers liked the dessert no less than their commander, and they began to add honey and wine to it. Slaves were sent to the mountains to get the snow, and they were specially trained to run fast, so that the snow did not have time to melt. It took a whole millennium before ice cream finally became known to Europeans. Since then, the new history of the cold dessert began, associated with improving ice cream recipes and inventing new forms of it. In 1295, a Venetian merchant and traveler Marco Polo brought to his homeland, Italy, a recipe for frozen tea with added fruit. At first Italians were interested in the new recipe, but it did not become a favorite. And already in the 16th century they decided to change it and started to mix and freeze together with fruits not tea, but milk. And then the Italians managed to develop an even more complicated recipe. The ice cream made using this recipe was very similar to the modern one. The Italians kept this technology of making ice cream a secret and used it successfully for several centuries. The next to know about ice cream were the French. They owe it to Catherine de' Medici. Without exaggeration, in France they simply fell in love with the dessert and immediately adopted its recipe from the Italians. The French chefs began to experiment on it continuously. And the result of their efforts was the fact that France is recognized as the home of the famous plombier. The name is associated with the town of Plombières-les-Bains, where they learned to make ice cream from milk, cream, egg whites, and butter. In the 17th century in Paris, Francesco Procopio de Coltelli opened the first ice cream café. Since then the product ceased to be a dessert for the elite and became widely available. In 1625, when the granddaughter of Catherine de' Medici married King Charles I, history repeated itself and the secret of making ice cream became known in England. Subsequently, with the country's settlers, the dessert migrated to the United States. The United States has a major role in the history of ice cream development. In particular, much credit is due to the Americans for launching the first line of conveyorized production of the dessert, and also invented for ice cream waffle cups and cones. Such a popular chocolate-covered popsicle appeared in the US for the first time as well. Its creator is Christian Kent Nelson. It was a coincidence that helped him create this ice cream. Nelson was the owner of a candy store. And when one day his little customer had long doubts whether to choose ice cream or chocolate, the confectioner thought, why not combine these two children's favorite treats? He named the new ice cream Eskimo Pie.